we were with a group in Chicago, and they were completely unaware that if they showed their gun with a switch to the camera, and the thumbnail for their music video that they were publishing to the world was like 4 or 5 switches pointed at the camera. And I had to call them up and say, look, like that's a Fed case, dude. Like, you got to really be careful about what you put out. And the cameraman wasn't telling him that. And this guy even had a manager. And I don't know if he was telling him about that. But there's some pretty easy things to avoid to not get yourself in trouble. And I think maybe that'll be a really good segment for a lot of our viewers are, what are some of the top things you've seen people do? Maybe they're unaware of the rules or unaware of how to navigate, and they've shot themselves in the foot by doing that. So where are some things we can go with here?
Okay. First I kind of want to start by saying I don't think, at least in my experience, that people are necessarily unaware that sort of thing can get them in trouble.
They just don't care.
They just don't care.
Yeah.
Or they think that it's not going to be them, right? They see everyone else doing it. Not everyone else is going to prison. So, like, why would it be them?
Which we think about in a lot of situations, texting and driving, drinking and whatever. There's a lot of, that's an easy thing to think it's not going to be me.
Right. Or they think maybe that it's not going to be as serious as it actually is if they do get caught, right? Like, there's a lot of, like, jailhouse lawyering type of mentality about it, where they'll give each other really shitty advice, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, for example, people are under the misconception that if it's just a picture of a gun, well, then they can't prove it's a real gun. They, being the police, can't prove it's a real gun, right? And the reality is they don't actually have to in most circumstances. Or, like, the time when it would come to actually prove it's a real gun, like, what, you're going to go to trial behind this and risk 15 years or 20 years or whatever? Like, no, most people are taking a deal. Like, 98% of cases end up in plea bargains, you know? So it's like, yeah, sure, maybe you have some action that somebody could go and argue that that's not a real gun, that you used a fake gun, and we could, you know, I mean, do you have prop receipts for it? Like, do you, you know, can you prove it wasn't real? But the risk that the gamble you're taking to actually fight that fight is so high.
Because if you say no to the plea deal and then it goes to trial, there's no going back from that. That's kind of a point of no return.
I mean, once you start a trial, if you get convicted, the judge can sentence you, you know, and usually, most times when you lose at a trial, your sentence is going to be a lot worse than whatever deal got offered to you. But yeah, so them thinking that, oh, they can't prove it's a real gun because it was on camera. They never found the gun. So, you know, that's not enough to get a gun case. That's not true. Like, you can be prosecuted for posting pictures of guns, especially if you are what they call a prohibited person, right? So if you have a prior felony, if there's some legal reason you're not allowed to have guns and you're posting them, that becomes a lot more of an issue than if, you know, you're just a regular, you know, person without any criminal history and you're posting guns. I hate guns on the internet. I just hate seeing them. I'm a gun owner, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a military veteran. Like, I think everyone should arm themselves. I'm not an anti-gun person. Should you be posting them all over the internet when you have felony record? Like, no, you should not be doing that.
I think the temptation of the flex sometimes is just too hard to pass up, it feels like.
I get it. And I don't like to tell people how to do their art. I'm not an artist, you know? Like, there's a reason that it's commercially successful to, like, show a bunch of guns all over your stuff. Like, the audiences love it. You know, the marketers love it. The labels seem to love it. And that fucking sucks. Like, that is a whole different cultural problem. But, like, that's one of the major things is the whole showing guns is in people thinking they can't get in trouble just because they're on a video. The way to get around that is to actually use prop guns. They look real. They are real. They just pull the firing pin out. You get them from a company. You have a receipt that shows that date. That way, if you ever do get called to the carpet about it, you actually can prove that, you know, it wasn't real. Your audience isn't going to know.
It is really smart. I think the downfall there is this kind of an ego thing, like, oh, you a bitch if you don't have a real gun is kind of the mentality. But I think if the mentality could be shifted to this is how we beat the system, then it might be more encouraged.
Maybe. I mean, the people that I work with who are showing guns in videos are people who really do need guns in real life.
Yeah.
So it's less about, you know...
It's not a marketing pitch.
It's not a marketing pitch.
It's part of the
it's
everyday...
how they live. Yeah, it's how they live. are gonna, that, you know, a lot of them have been shot. Their family members have been shot. Their friends have been shot. They see a lot of violence. People are targeting them. Life is dangerous where they come from. You know, just because they get some money or just because you see their songs on YouTube or whatever, that doesn't change the level of danger that they face. And for a lot of them, it increases the level of danger they face, you know? So, but the ones that go on camera can be fake, right? And then the ones that you have in your bag or like in the studio with you somewhere else, those could be real, you know? You don't have to be unarmed, but I just, you know, prefer when people don't put real guns on camera. So that's a thing. That's a thing. A worse mistake that I see rappers make. I represent a lot of rappers. It's like 50% of my clientele. And the worst mistake that I see them making is in the lyrics.